All right. It
Okay.
said recording in progress. So I think we're set.
All right.
Hello. This is Infinite Humanitarians, and I'm Anne Marie Newman. Thank you for joining us today. Infinite Humanitarians showcases people who are changing the world today, tomorrow, and in the future. And I am fortunate to have Susan Norris with me today. She is the founder of Rescuing Hope. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for making time. Susan founded Rescuing Hope almost 15 years ago, I believe. She's also written a book about the human trafficking plight. And I know that there are many people out there these days that are learning a lot more about human trafficking, and that it's not something that happens in a different country. It happens in many of our own backyards. So Susan has a very unique approach that I think complements a lot of the various organizations that are also fighting human trafficking and also making awareness. So, Susan, if you want to tell us a little bit about your grassroots start, I think that would be very inspiring to people who are thinking about creating a humanitarian project themselves.
Sure. So I've been doing this work for 17 years.
Wow.
The first six, I was a one-trick pony and did so on my own with our family minivan and our debit card. So our nonprofit is 11 years old this year, but the work is the same. I just got help 11 years ago. So I am an educator by trade, taught everything from kindergarten all the way through college. And I tell people the only difference between kindergarten and college is you can throw a college student out and DFACS doesn't come looking for you, but sometimes they act the same. So, um,
Oh,
but I spent a lot of time working in the elementary realm in school and then with college age. Then we relocated to Georgia. At that time, I had become a young mom. So I was wherever my kids were. So I was volunteering in schools. And with a master's in education, they loved having me come up until they end elementary school. Then, not so much. They kind of want the kids to do their own thing. But I knew as an educator, some of the most dangerous times for your children are their middle school and high school years. And today, that's even more horrific than it was way back then. So
yeah.
I started volunteering in the school. I was working the front office because you hear everything there. And I also started working with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So I did that for about 4 years. And when that was coming to a close for me, because my youngest was moving to high school, and I just felt led that they were supposed to have that season without mom so plugged in before they went off to college. So I started looking for what was next. And that's when I heard at the time the statistic being quoted was that the average entry age into the sex trade was 12 to 14. And they were really only talking about girls. Later, a stat came out and said for boys, it's 11 to 13. And a lot of people don't think boys are victims, but they very much are. And so I basically did what I perceive any mom would do. It's like, I got to find out about this because if my kids are in this demographic, it's not going to happen to my kids. I'm going to dig. So I did that. I started talking to anyone who would really give me the time of day. There were
Right.
only about 4 or 5 organizations in the movement at this time. So I talked to them. I tried to get in and talk to law enforcement. I literally tried to talk to everyone. I met a detective who became a gatekeeper for me. And to this day, he and I are still friends. And
Oh, that's great.
so he had me sitting down with families whose daughters were missing. He had me sitting down with survivors who
Oh,
had gotten out of the life, but were still
oh,
very clearly walking in trauma. Um, I
right.
met with rape victims. I met with former drug dealers. I met with former gang leaders. I met with former traffickers. And really,
Wow.
I was just picking anybody's brain, trying to learn. I used to
Well,
tell people that as a teacher, a mom, and a female, I could find out more than the FBI. Um, and so then I took that knowledge and I wrote a book, which is hilarious because I'd never written anything past lesson plans in my own name. But I knew that students were sitting ducks without information. And a movie would have been the best way to do it, but let's be real, I didn't have money hardly to get a book out the door, let alone a movie. So I
right.
started with what I had, where I was to do what I could. And so in December of 2012, we launched the book titled Rescuing Hope, a Story of Sex Trafficking in America. Shameless plug, you can still get it on Amazon and
Wow.
Barnes and
But
Noble.
that's, that's so cutting edge. I mean, that's many years ago,
It
2012.
is. We've
Yeah.
actually since 2012 we've sold 20,000 copies, and it's never been in a bookstore. So it's been people
Wow.
buying it online or buying it at events where I've spoken, or other nonprofits buying it by the cases to train their staff and their volunteers what trafficking looks like in Metro Atlanta or somewhere in the state of
So,
Georgia.
what are the ages that this book really can appeal to? I mean, that can read it.
Depends on if you ask me or mom and dad. And a
Yeah.
lot of parents get wigged out because the full title is Rescuing Hope, a Story of Sex Trafficking in America. And they
Right.
think we're going to talk about sex and that's going to make their kids want to go have sex. And I always tell people, newsflash,
Yeah.
all your kids know about sex and half of them are doing it and you don't know it. So let's address the monkey in the room. We don't talk about penises and vaginas. I don't get graphic with what happens. I really lead the reader to the doorway, and then the door pretty much closes as you turn the page, and you're left to read between the lines because I wanted to make sure it remained PG-13, which is basically a middle school level.
Right.
Now, I do have a disclaimer in the front of the book to parents to, read this with your kids. We've actually written a discussion guide that we will email you for free.
Oh, wow.
All someone has to do is send an email to Haley at rescuinghope.com. That's HALEY at rescuinghope.com. And you can have it for free. So it's great if you and your child want to read it together, or if you want to host a small group of young
Right.
people or even adult women. And then when you're done, email us back and go, hey, we're done reading the book. And she will schedule a 30-minute Zoom call, very much like this, where they can ask me questions because it's going to spur questions. It's
Oh,
intended to spur conversation. Now, what we do know too is um, it's a great tool for parents who get real wiggy about talking about this sort of stuff because
right.
the story unfolds for you and the questions are right there. And what we know is parallel reading with a child over a difficult topic is easier for them to talk about because they can talk about Hope, the girl in the book, not themselves. How Hope went through a rape, how Hope has to deal with someone requiring this of her, how Hope made poor choices. So it provides that avenue for a deeper conversation. So that released, I started getting requests to speak, and I thought, why? And they said, you're an expert. I'm like, of what? And so I learned in 2013, I knew more than most people about the issue of trafficking. Fast forward all these years later, I'm a subject matter expert and I provide training for local, state, and federal law enforcement. I do training for medical personnel and urgent centers, women's centers, and ERs. I do training in schools for school personnel. We work with people who go into homes who may see some things that they don't know they're seeing. So we give them a different set of lenses to look through. That's called Behind My Door. Then we do a training for the people who work in nail salons and hair salons because traffickers will invest in hair and nails because that's investing in their product and gets them a higher return on investment. And that's horrific to think about humanity that way. But
Right.
that's how they look at it. They don't look at whoever they're trafficking as a human, because heaven forbid, then they would have to like have some moral compass. But if they can
Right.
look at this person as a widget, and to quote a line from Taken, which is not how trafficking happens, um,
Right.
but
Right.
the line in it when he says it's only business, that's truly how traffickers look at this. It's like, I really don't care what someone does to you. I don't care if you're homosexual or heterosexual and what they are. I care, what are they going to give me, money, goods, or services, for 30 minutes or an hour of your time? That's all that matters to a trafficker. So, wrote the book, launched the book, started getting asked to speak, and then my phone started ringing. And it was the girls that I had interviewed. Hey, mama, I'm in jail. Will you put money on my books? Hey, mama, I need diapers for my baby. Hey, mama, I don't have anywhere to sleep tonight. And I remember thinking, why are you calling me mama? And what books are we putting money on? And how could putting money on top of a book help you? I was so green. This was 2013. I knew nothing. I have learned light years of information since then, and have really seen how over time I remain the student working with survivors, but then offer for them education in areas and platforms that they have no experience with. So in 2015, we founded Rescuing Hope, and I had worked with other nonprofits. I was giving them all the money people were giving me. I was sending them the volunteers. And I remember calling one going, hey, I'm thinking about starting a nonprofit. What do you think if I do this? And he started laughing at me and goes, it's about stinking time. We're taking bets on when you're going to figure this out. So we started, and I was
Nice.
very intentional to look at what was being done and to choose our lane carefully and to stay in our lane.
Can I stop you for a minute there? Because
Sure.
that is, I think, one of the biggest takeaways I'd like for emerging humanitarians or anyone who is thinking about getting into their passion project to help out is really, as you know, I mentioned, it's a banking term, but I use it in the nonprofit arena. KYC, know your community. And I
Mm.
think that's so wise that you looked at who was doing what already.
Well, I've always had a saying that if if you join me or I join you and we're doing the exact same thing, then one of us is obsolete. So let's look at what's being done and let's find the holes. Where's the need, the greatest need? That is honestly how I started writing the book. I met with someone on the front lines and I said, all right, where's the hole? She said, what are you talking about? I said, I don't care if it's a ministry, a business, a family, another nonprofit. There's always a hole in the wall that needs shoring up. So where's that? And she told me that young people don't know this is happening right in their backyard. So that led to the writing of the book. Well, then when it got to the point where I was like, I need help. What would I need to do? Two things became apparent to me. Everyone does awareness. If you are working in this footprint, or really any pick your calls, everyone has to raise awareness that this even exists before you'll ever get volunteers, dollars, staff members, the whole shebang. So that's a given. But what's missing? The primary thing that's missing at the time was solid um, education that brought reliable data that goes all the way to the root. Where did that statistic come from? Where did that quote originate? Because wherever it originated can speak to the validity of it and how it's being used. For example, I was on a platform with someone and she said, Atlanta is number one for trafficking in the world, not Thailand, not Cambodia, but Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm sitting there literally beside her going, that is so not right. But how am I going to tell this audience of 300 people she's wrong? That's stupid. without
Mhm.
looking at her and go, "You're wrong, you're stupid," because we were on a platform. So I employed the same thing I require of my staff every day. Let's talk about the root. And I said, the things with statistics is you can really make them say anything you want if you don't dig to the full picture of it. Case
Right.
in point, my esteemed colleague stated this. Now, she was likely referring to this study that looked at 8 cities in the United States only. And in those 8 cities that looked at where is most of the money going into this to the sex industry. That was looking at strip clubs and adult toy stores and all of these legal things that were legal at the time. And Atlanta was the top out of 8 cities in the US. Another study that she could have referenced was one that stated that the FBI had identified 15 hubs in the United States, not the world, where sex trafficking happened. The list was alphabetical, and Atlanta starts with the letter A. So, in both of those studies,
Mhm.
was Atlanta number one? Yes. Did either one of those studies reflect what she was saying? 100% no. So,
Right.
we always have to go to the root. So, that's why that's the educator in me. Can you substantiate what you're saying and give your documented proof? So that was part of it. The other part of it was let's look for areas that are not being met. So training was a big area, and we've been very blessed. A lot of the nonprofits that are in this footprint with us, if someone calls them for training, they will say, "You want Susan Norris, you want Rescuing Hope." And that's an honor to me. The same is true if someone talks to me about housing. I'm like, "Oh, you want so and so," because that's not what we do. Um, the other thing is there was massive attention on child sex trafficking. And that's because everybody has their heart pricked for children. It's always an
Yeah.
area that we get,
Right.
that
Right.
heartstring tug. But there was virtually nothing for women out there,
Right.
particularly women who would refuse to go into long-term residential programming. Some of them, they come out of the life and they're like, somebody's told me what to do for 3 or 5 or 10 years. I'm not going somewhere else where someone's telling me what to do. And I mean, I'm not bashing those programs. It only makes sense. You have to have a common wake up time. You have to have common meal times when you're corralling 20, 30 people in a program. And I mean, it's just like running summer
Right.
camp for kids. It's the only thing that makes sense. But women were saying no, or they had children. And in some cases, they didn't have reliable families, so they'd have to put their kids in defects, and they were trafficked out of defects. So they said no. So we were
Ooh.
learning, okay, this is an area that has no assistance. So that's where we focused. Because really, as I talked with these ladies, met with them, and really talked about what do you need help with, the only difference between them and the children was they had an 18th birthday. They still had been sexually assaulted. They still had been sold over and over. They still had quotas. They still got beat, branded,
Mm.
traded between traffickers. The most horrific of horror stories you could imagine. A lot of people are familiar with trauma or an issue that makes you vulnerable, whether it's drug addiction, alcoholism, domestic abuse, suicidal ideation, homelessness, lack of
Mhm.
education.
Right.
Throw all those in a blender, and out comes a sex trafficking survivor.
Right.
So that's really how we picked where we plugged in. Where is the greatest need? And what is the skill set that I possess that I can marry with that greatest need to make the greatest impact?
That is fantastic. You really went about it in a wise way. And the idea for many, besides the KYC, is also the idea of partnership. And that's where I think as we get into this mode of action versus just planning, we have to realize that there are going to be other people doing other things in the area, and how we dovetail with them can make the difference between life and death for someone. Because
Oh, 100%.
it sounds like you could rattle off every resource in Georgia that complements what you're doing.
We make it very intentional to
Mm-hmm.
look at who's providing housing, who's providing all the things that we don't. And then some of the people that provide what we do, but they may be geographically closer to the victim that we're serving.
Right.
We serve victims across the state of Georgia and those who have moved to what we call border states like South Carolina, Florida, places that bump up against Georgia. Most of them moved for safety purposes. And so we serve those individuals, but Metro Atlanta is our sweet spot. So sometimes we have to tap someone in South Carolina and say, hey, who do you have that can help with this? And we help. We get phone calls from the National Coalition on Sexual Exploitation all the time saying, hey, there's a victim in this state. Who do you know in that state that we can connect them with? Because I travel the nation and speak and train. So we really work in tandem. There's not one organization, I don't care what your cause is, there's not one organization who's going to solve it all. So you've got to learn to play well with others to truly have impact. And the kindergarten teacher comes out in me when I speak about this all the time, because I tell people, this was before everybody like freaked out if children actually played outside. We used to play Red Rover on the playground.
Yep. I remember those days.
You'd go running and buzz through those arms and grab one of them and drag them back. And I tell people all the time, that is how we fight trafficking. Every organization is linking arms, and we are charging the gates of hell where this evil happens and bringing victims out one at a time. We are not an exit strategy organization. We're not going to go bust down doors. We're not going to go swing and do all these things. However, we partner with law enforcement. So if they encounter a young lady on a sting and she needs assistance, we're not going to go, sorry, that's not our jam. Of course, we're going to help her. We don't provide housing, but of course, we're going to help her find housing. Now, we may call one of our partner organizations to do that, but we're not going to walk away from that. But we're very intentional. One of my mentors told me early on in this movement, she said, God clearly called you to this. My charge to you is to remain a fitly shot arrow at the target you were called to. So
great advice.
I have
great
an arrow.
Advice.
Yep. I have an arrow that hangs over the door to my office here. I have an arrow that hangs over my home office as well. So they are constant visuals to me that I have to be that fitly shot arrow if I'm going to have impact. Because if I dabble in everything, then I may go 3 miles wide, but I'm only an inch deep, and I'm really not going to impact change. But if I stay within a 3-foot area, I can go deep, 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 and I can really impact change.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I want to go back to the comment you made that said, reference another, I think it was a movie that said that's really not how trafficking happens.
Movie Taken.
Yeah. Can we talk about that a little bit more? Because again, I'm very grassroots like you are, and I think we need to know more about that. That it isn't something that happens in another country, and it isn't something that only happens to somebody who's homeless. How does it happen? I mean, I know it's a wide variety, but
so first, let's address the movies. Taken was it for the longest time, and it was not written to fight trafficking. It was written and produced for cinematography and to sell movie tickets. Now, are there some components of that are accurate? Sure. The guy who talked to the girl at the airport and convinced them to split a cab and He ran because he said, I didn't traffic them. He's called a lure. And if you know anything about fishing, a lure is supposed to attract the fish. Well, he was attractive. He talked, and then he just made a phone call to a trafficker who then came and at that point physically abducted the girls. So, a couple things about that movie. There are two American girls traveling to Europe unassisted or unaccompanied. That's not normal. Most parents will say, my kids are safe. I would never do that. Then there's physical abduction. Some studies say only 10% of trafficking victims are physically abducted. Other studies have said 0.02% are abductions, that force is involved. The others are through fraud and coercion. So there's that to consider.
Wow.
And then, the line that everyone knows from that movie comes from Liam Neeson when he says, I have a very special set of skills. I will find you, and when I find you, I will kill you, because he's her father. Most dads don't have a very special set of skills. So they're not ex-mercenaries or ex-Delta Force who can go blowing in and take a ballpoint pen, kill 7 people, and walk out with the one they want to question. So that's not realistic. So it gives false sense of security. There are a lot of other trafficking movies that have come out, some of them documentaries, some of them, for lack of a better term, I'll call B-rated movies, the quality and all of that. And the acting is not like blockbuster level.
Right.
But they may tell the story of one person. And the reality is, that's one story. One of them, it was the dad was selling his daughters overseas because he had a gambling issue and the mom had a drug addiction. And so he was taking them over there, auctioning them off to cover his gambling debt. Well, that gives, okay, you're like, well, I don't have a drug addiction. My husband's not a gambler. My girls are safe. So there's not been a movie that shows the breadth of how trafficking could happen in the US. And we are typical Americans. We don't think our poo stinks. So we love to focus on what happens over there and how awful it is over there. But we feel safe because it's over there. No, it's not. It's in your backyard. It's in your neighborhood. It might be under your roof and you may not know it. One of the more famous trafficking survivors who speaks, she was trafficked by her next door neighbor. Her parents did not know it. She didn't speak about it till much later. She's a good Catholic girl and didn't want people to think horrible of her. And the only way she got away from her trafficker is her dad got transferred and they moved. Her name's Teresa Flores. So you just need to know that this is far more pervasive than what we think. And it's not just blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls. It's Black and brown girls. It's Asian girls. It's every race, every nationality. I always say it is not a respecter of persons. And that's because, remember, a trafficker doesn't look at your child as a person and go, no, I don't want that hair color. No, I don't want this. They look at them and think, okay, who will pay me to do this to this child or do that to this child? So all the traffickers looking for is vulnerability so they can recruit, groom, and lure you away.
Right. How is law enforcement? Because I know you work closely with them. How are they arresting or handling the traffickers? How are they trying to? I know we hear a lot about that. This. I mean, or at least recently, compared to before, on the news you'll hear that this, so many children were found, or this or that happened. How does that go on?
Well, law enforcement's gotten a lot smarter. They have come to recognize that this is not child prostitution. In fact, there's no such thing as child prostitution because you cannot consent nationally until age 18. So prostitution implies choice. So if you can't consent until after 18, then there's no such animal as a child prostitute. I've fought with some less than educated law enforcement over this issue before. most law enforcement, I would venture to say 97, 98% of them see this as evil and want to stop it. The problem they faced early on when I started this work, there just weren't enough laws on the books for them to go after this. And there weren't places to put victims for recovery. So they were putting them in YDCs, or they were sending them home, and the trafficker would roll up and pick them up again. So we've seen massive improvement. We have trained through the Georgia Sheriff's Association at least 6 different conferences that they've hosted. All 159 counties in the state of Georgia invited to sheriffs, the deputy chiefs, their chaplains, their school resource officers, even their admins, their jail teams, because there are people that are sent to jail by the trafficker. They commit a crime. It's called forced criminology. So they can go to jail, so they can groom, recruit, and lure other girls out of jail. So when they get out, a trafficker picks them up and they're right back into it. So we trained the jail teams too. So we've done that over 18 months. We did that for the state of Georgia. We work with local law enforcement. As far as the coast in St. Simons and as far north as Young Harris, we've done training for law enforcement and everywhere in between. We've done little bitty, teeny tiny towns, and we've done big suburb areas that have very large police departments and a large footprint that they cover. And then we have worked in tandem with a federal law enforcement training center, where I was invited in to provide a training that they reported and launched out to all 127 federal agencies that provide law enforcement that fall under the Department of Defense. So we've been pushing out. We are also in the process of finalizing a fully digital online training for law enforcement, so that the small little departments that don't have the budget to bring us in can pay a much cheaper fee for their officers and agents to go through the training online. And by doing this, once we get it out the door and up and running, it will make our training something that is available across the entire country. And I'm not only post certified by the state of Georgia to train law enforcement, but I have federal credentials from IADLEST to train all across the nation for law enforcement. So that's huge. What we're seeing is they are recognizing more. They are arresting more. They're picking up more at traffic stops. They're paying attention when they've arrested someone for a crime, when they start questioning them to determine, is this forced criminology where a trafficker required this of them, and helping them with that. They're also paying great attention and starting to establish stings and see the value of bringing organizations like ours in when they do that. We have certified victims advocates that can go in on a sting with law enforcement, be on site. So when they recover someone, they can bring them to us, because let's face it, their trafficker has told them, don't talk to law enforcement. But we're telling them, we can help you get a hot meal, a place to stay. We can help you get education. We can help you get a job. We've had 6 survivors we served by their own home. We had a survivor last year graduate from college, and she's enrolling for grad school. We've had survivors get their GED. We've had survivors get high school diplomas because they didn't want a GED. They wanted an actual diploma. So we have a program called Hope Academy, where you can go through and do that and a variety of other things. And really the only thing that's holding us back from expanding Hope Academy is funding. The more funding we get, the greater we can grow that. The law enforcement training is just the first stop on the first responder learning center that we've developed. Next, we'll do medical, and then we'll do that for educators, and then hopefully all the other trainings that we do. So again, the only thing that's standing in the way of that happening is funding, because we see that education is the doorway to changing futures. And I tell our staff and people all the time, we may, compared to organizations that serve over 1,000 or 1,200 survivors in a year, we may serve with day-to-day direct services, 20 to 25 face-to-face right now. As our online platform grows, that number will expand. But I don't look at it as helping 25 girls. I look at it helping 25 generations, because we're not just changing one life. We're completely shifting the trajectory of
Right.
that life and all of their generations that follow.
Right.
So,
Right.
because of
Funding,
that, we're seeing huge impact.
that it's incredible. It is. It's not just the one life, like you said. It's generations to come. It's friends and family around, and the ripple effect is tremendous. But again, I want to call out to the emerging humanitarians. Funding, funding, funding. We know that lots of people have great, ambitious programs that they've put together, but as you start to look at this, what a great organization to engage with their expertise and where they're going. They can do and scale so much more so quickly. So again, I love the fact that you have a book that people can engage with, not just with high schoolers and adults, but just a myriad of people. But also that people from all across the nation can provide funding to Rescuing Hope and give hope
Absolutely.
now. I mean, they are, and that's the part that I'm really trying to say is 2026 is about being, and you had this on your website, so I knew we were meant to talk to each other, being the change you want to see in the world.
Yes.
It's time to get off the sidelines. You can write a million plans, you can talk about this, and I just I can't stress it enough to people, and I want to say it as gently but as strongly as I can. What can you do today? What can you do this week?
Exactly.
And there's whether you can do and help with Rescuing Hope now, who I think they're doing such a great job, whether it's financial or helping with education. Start a book club. I mean, what a great thing for all the book clubs out there, of multi-generation. It'd be a great mother-daughter book club. I mean,
Absolutely.
I'm actually sitting
Well,
here
and
thinking,
we've had so many times where we've had the opportunity to FaceTime or Zoom or Teams, whatever. I've been on so many different platforms. One, I had to create an avatar, and my avatar fell off the stage because I didn't know what I was doing. So just I'm blonder than I pay to be, but I'm a whole lot of fun. So
hey, but you're out there. You're taking that step.
absolutely. So, we love that. We tell people, do what you can where you are with what you have. And we have one donor, he's in his 80s, and he gives us $5 a month because he's
Yep.
on a fixed income. We're launching a 25 Key to Hope to Unlock Hope campaign where we're asking people, okay, give $25 a month. That's less than a cup of Starbucks coffee a week or whatever, whether
Yeah.
you go and
Right.
grab a meal at a fast food place or something. We have gotten very creative with the way that people can support us. So we have a donate page on our website, and they can
Mm-hmm.
give through Stripe, through PayPal. You can write a check. We have Venmo. You can Venmo us.
Mm-hmm.
We can take, as people are entering fourth quarter of life, they're starting to look at, okay, so what can I do with maybe some securities and things? So our bookkeeper can work with you to give securities, because then you're not taxed with what you give, and then we
Right.
can sell that. But one of the things that I just lost my mom, so this has been something near and
Mm-hmm.
dear to me. It's the legacy gift. And we have our first legacy donor. She's worked with her financial planner where she knows how much she has to give away every year to not get hit with taxes. So
Right.
she's committed a rather large dollar amount that comes in a one lump sum check every year from her. And she is a legacy donor. So she has put us in her will. So when she passes, after her family gets their portion of her estate, we are one of 3 nonprofits that will get the lion's share divided 3 ways, and it will come to us. So that will impact what we can do. She's our second legacy donor that we've had. The first one was Marie McClanahan, who we created the Marie McClanahan Education Empowerment Fund that helps girls get scholarships to go to school or to start businesses. So we actually worked with a local glass blower. I don't know if you've heard the kind of the legend of the cardinal, that it's someone who's passed, who's come by. So we had them create a glass blown cardinal that we gifted her at our gala as a legacy donor. And, you know, that's one of those things, that's something you can give that doesn't hurt you at all.
Right.
You know, and I asked her, I
Love
said,
that.
what made you choose this versus giving everything to your kids? And she said, you know, my kids are doing well and my grandkids are doing well. And I don't want to give them everything so they don't have to do anything. I
Right.
want them to have to continue to have purpose, to get up and work and go and do. But I also want to teach them that to whom much is given, much is required. And since I've been blessed financially, I want them to see me giving to things that cause my heart to leap,
Right.
things that I'm
Right.
tethered to. And she has
Right.
just such an inspiration to me to
Right.
think about this. So, yeah,
Right.
there are a lot of creative ways. And if you want to give your time or open doors for us, we welcome that. If you want to get involved in this movement and you go, you know what, Susan, I appreciate what you're doing, but what you shared really doesn't wet my whistle. Okay, email me. Let's have a conversation. I can figure out what excites you and I can connect you to my partner in this work that does that. Because here's the
Yeah.
thing, if they get you and it helps advance the movement, I'm on the same Red Rover team. It's a win for me. I don't
Yep.
have to get everything to win. I'm some of the biggest cheerleaders in this movement for my colleagues that have other nonprofits.
Right.
But just like I said, I don't need another housing nonprofit. That's not what I need. Where's the hole? So, you know what? Look at what's going on. And if you find a hole in this movement and you want to step into it, please do. But
Right.
if you look around and go, I don't see a hole. Okay, well, then which of the organizations causes your heart to sing? Our pastor always says, what makes you mad? What makes you sad? And what makes you cry?
Right.
Find
Right.
where it triggers you, and that's who you're supposed to work with. So I hope
Right.
it's Rescuing Hope because, you know, the book was written because the girl's name was Hope, but somebody goes, why do you write, why is your name Rescuing Hope? We don't need rescuing. We can get out of the life. Some of us have gotten out of the life by ourselves. And said, yeah, you got out and you felt dead and you felt like nobody cared and nobody saw you. I'm not talking about a person. I'm talking about the concept of hope.
Right.
To be able to hope for your future, you have to have support. You have to have education. You have to have a community that sees you warts and all and says, you know what, we still like you. That's
Right.
what we bring to this movement. We bring hope.
Yeah. It's awesome. I think it's absolutely awesome. I love also the legacy giving because how does your family and what is the best way to teach them who you are and to perpetuate your legacy and to inspire them to create their own legacy, then show them, you know, where your heart's passion is. I'd like to close with asking you, I know we can't do a full seminar, maybe one day, but uh, if someone suspects someone is being trafficked, or what are the top three, four, you know, what are a few things that they can do to try to figure this out or get help with it?
The safest thing for you and the potential victim is for you to use your phone in a safe place where you're not overheard. And if you're in the state of Georgia, call the Georgia hotline number, which is 866 ENDHTGA. And that stands for End Human Trafficking Georgia.
Okay.
That hotline is manned 24/7. It will give you prompts. If you don't know which number to press, just press any of them. They always answer. You can tell them what you're seeing. They will help guide and direct you. Push come
Right.
to shove, dial 911.
Right.
If I really encourage people to save that number in their cell phone. There's also a national hotline number,
Mm-hmm.
which is 1-888 373 7373. And you can call that number, or you can send a text message to 233-733. That spells out be free. So I tell people, save those two hotlines in your cell phone
Right.
and use that, because if you step in, you're putting yourself and anyone with you at risk, because a trafficker, on the average trafficker in Metro Atlanta makes $33,000 a week
Wow.
with 4 to 6 victims.
Wow.
So you would be disrupting their financial revenue.
Right.
So they would want to get you out of the way, and they have means and motive to do so. Not only if you insert yourself, do you put yourself and those you're with at risk, but you put the victim at risk.
Right.
So, and you can't go follow the girl in the bathroom and have a conversation, because you don't know that he doesn't have someone else in there watching her that would
Oh,
put you
yeah.
all at risk. So that's why 911 or the hotline number is your best guess.
Okay.
Um, if you're savvy and you have one of these devices and you can act like you're texting and take a photo, great.
Oh,
But if
that's a
you
great
take
tip.
a photo like my mother used to, like this, zooming in and out, then you're not discreet at all. Or if you're like this and you're like, no, that's not discreet. So you have to
Right.
be careful. Um,
Right.
but if you have a photo and you call 911 and you say, hi, I'm at this Starbucks on Howell Mill Road,
Mhm.
and someone I think is being trafficked, then they can dispatch. You have a photo. And if they leave, if you can get a photo of the car without being seen, then that's going to help too.
Oh,
Um,
that's great tips.
so those are things you need to do what's safe for you first,
Right.
safe for the victim second,
Right.
and what provides the most information for the trafficker.
Right.
So you and your friend, let's say you're in that Starbucks and all, you can easily, if you and I were having a Frappuccino at Starbucks, I could be like, oh, Smile, I want to get your picture. And you're taking your picture, but your camera is so off center that you're getting their picture.
Right.
There's subtle ways to do that.
Right.
And
Right.
we are such a self-absorbed selfie world. You
Yeah.
can even do a photo like this of yourself and someone and just make sure they're in the background.
Right.
Anything that's going to make it
Right.
so that you're not blatantly obvious, so
Right.
they're not put at risk.
Right. That's great tips, because I still remember, having been in and out of Hartsfield Atlanta Airport for so many years. The one time, and it was years ago, you may know when this started. I'll never forget. I got off the plane, and all of a sudden, there was this announcement about human trafficking.
Yes,
And there were
yes.
signs in the airport, and there were signs on the back of the doors. And I was like, finally,
You,
finally. But then, like you're saying, how do you address it? And we will put, if you help me and send some of this in an email to me, so I'm sure I get it correct. I want to make
it's
sure
all
and
on our
put,
website. All you have to do
okay,
is go ahead. It
go,
says on the landing page, or the hotline numbers right there for you.
and that's
There's
Brett.
also underneath the Learn tab, the site's rescuinghope.com. And under the Learn tab are a lot of free resources. They're in English, and a good bit of them are in Spanish as well. And you can
Right.
print off as many of those as you want, share them with your friends. Um, there are books and documentaries and movies about trafficking. Um, we don't necessarily endorse them as saying they're great. We're just saying these are some things that have come out. Um, but some of them are our favorites, some of them are average. Um, But the more you learn, the more you're going to become aware. Invite us in your community to provide a training, whether it's in your house of faith, a civic organization, or through your school PTSA. Invite us in to do training to the students in your school. We had a snowstorm predicted, ice storm. It was supposed to be horrific for Monday and Tuesday of this week. It turned out to be almost a non-issue. There was a little bit of ice, but we were scheduled to go into a school system and do a 2-day training with students. We've now bumped it to February that we'll be doing. But this particular school system has had us in, this is our 4th year with them, because they see the importance. We started doing a PTA training for the parents. Then we did a staff training that was very different. And then we did a student training.
Right. That's fantastic.
You happen to know businesses that would either give financially or in kind, invite us in to provide training for them. You know, one of the easiest ways that people can get involved, if you have a vacation home, you can email Haley and say, I want to donate my vacation home for auction for your gala. If you have a business and have a product that people like die to have, then you can email Haley, Haley at rescueandhope.com and say, hey, I want to gift you this, or I want to give, maybe it's a spa, or you're an esthetician, or a massage therapist, or maybe you teach pickleball. Everybody and their brother's playing pickleball all of a sudden, or mahjong. So maybe you gift a class,
right,
or materials to do those classes. There's so many creative ways. I promise you, if you want to get in this fight, email us. We will help you find a way.
That is great. That is so great. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all you've been doing for so many years. I am so thankful that I got connected with you, and we'll follow up with you as well. But thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. In closing, I'd like to, I guess, stay in that gratitude frame of mind. This is my 1-year anniversary of doing this. I jumped into this last year in January. I was also talking about human trafficking at that time, because again, January is the Human Trafficking Awareness Month, although I believe, and I think Susan does, and everyone else involved with it, human trafficking awareness is an every day, every minute awareness outreach. So if you are someone that is thinking about doing some type of humanitarian plan project, go find someone who is doing maybe something complementary to it. Get involved. Find out, is there something you can do today, this week, this month? Don't put it off. Just go out there and, like, Susan said, I loved it. Find it, and I say this as well, is find what makes your heart sing. Dabble around. Go to an organization that's fighting, human trafficking. Susan's offered to have you email her or Haley. If that's not it, find whatever it is: food pantry, clothing closets, veterans, homeless, whatever it is. Just start. 2026 is and I will tell you and assure you, just like you're meeting Susan, who's so amazing, the people you meet on the journey of humanitarian outreach are unlike anyone you've ever met. You will make so many amazing friends. So please start. And in closing, again, thanks for listening. And if you have someone you'd like me to interview, please email me at infinitehumanitarians, and that's humanitarians with an S, at gmail.com. So until then, stay safe, be happy, and get engaged.
Awesome.
Now I got to figure out how to turn it off. Let's stop recording. We will.